Hey, and welcome headbangers, jocks, nerds, trendies, skaters, punks, and whatever a neo-maxi zoom dweeby is, and all others who grew up during the 80s and 90s. We are your gnarly hosts, Charlie and Paul, and this is Totally Radical Mixtape Podcast.
We're going to flash back to the movies, TV shows, food, trends, bands, and everything else that shaped our lives back in those days. So tease up your hair, slip on some neon, and grab some Pop Rocks. It's time to get our DeLorean up to 88 miles an hour.
And we ain't getting any younger. It's showtime.
Thanks, everybody, for checking out the pilot episode of the Totally Radical Mixtape Podcast. I'm Charlie Snyder, and Paul Wade is also here checking out some of the nostalgia of the 80s and 90s. But we're going to focus on the 80s here this evening, as we're going to talk about three things from that both back in those days. We're going to talk about Fast Times at Ridgemont High, an iconic film released in 1981. We're also going to talk about an iconic TV show, Cheers, which I'm sure most folks watching the podcast have watched once or twice. And then we're going to wrap up the discussion with our good friend Ozzy Osbourne, who recently passed. It's been a long run with Ozzy. He went from Black Sabbath to TV star to solo artist, but we're going to have a little bit of discussion around him, and hopefully you'll enjoy and get participating in the discussion. And you can always comment on the on our videos after the fact, so we know that you appreciated what you saw. So, Paul, you want to start off with the Fast Times?
Yeah, let's go to Fast Times here, and I thought it was released in 1982 in August 13th. So we just passed that date, which is interesting. You came up with these three. And if you look, let's see here. Cheers came out in 82. Fast Times opened in 82. And of course, we said Ozzy was doing drugs in 82.
Right. We can agree on that. We can certainly agree on that.
But yeah, so if we begin with Fast Times, I asked you why you picked it.
I would say, growing up as you're an adolescent, in the preteen years, it's interesting back in those days, especially looking at the R-rated movies out there saying, hey, I'd love to be like those guys. And then Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the advertisement came on the TV, and I'm like, hell yeah, this looks like the movie that I want to see. But my parents were like, I don't think so. You're 11 years old. I don't think you're going to go see a movie where Phoebe Cates takes her, what's out. So that was a little bit of pushback there. But God bless the VHS era. Soon followed the release of Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So I finally was able to view the movie in the privacy of my own home.
But it's not about Jeff Spicoli, even though he's like the marquee guy on every single DVD, VHS, poster and everything. It's about Brad and Stacy and Mark and Mike and all the people that are in the background there.
Right. I think it really spotlighted Sean Penn's talents. I mean, he never really played a role like this in the rest of his life, but I think this was his first major role.
True.
Not to mention there were others, Nicholas Coppola, Nick Cage. This was actually
who didn't speak the entire movie.
Did not speak. He appeared. If you ever want to look at the original movie, he's at the football game. He cheers in the middle of the game and never says a word.
He was 18. He was 18.
And that was the only movie that he ever was credited for where he was Nicholas Coppola, because he didn't want to be, have the shared surname, even though everybody out there knew exactly who he was, but they didn't want to be recognized by that. But you even had Anthony Edwards pre-ER as Stoner Bud number 2. And
Goose.
You also had Goose. Yeah, exactly.
He was 20. He was 20 at the time of the movie.
Yeah, but even Eric Stoltz was also a stoner bud, if you remember, sitting on the toilet having a conversation with.
I loved him in some kind of Wonderful, I think it was.
Yes.
He was. I don't know how old he was actually.
Right, but just a launching point for so many careers. I mean, even Judge Reinhold and Phoebe Cates. I mean, what roles were they in before this movie? I mean, this was just one of those beautiful sort of ensemble casts that just got together at one beautiful day at Van Nuys High School.
Now, Reinhold did say that he thought this was going to launch his career, but he ended up moving on to things like Stripes and Running Scared. But other people actually moved on. Not so much Phoebe Cates. I think she did Gremlins 2 or something. But and Backer, obviously, this might have been the spike of his entire career. I think he did plays is what I've wrote down for him, and then including your boy, and we'll get to Mike
Right.
And your impression of Mike, but something about foxes, and he wore a hell of a lot of pink in this movie.
Yeah. Well, Phoebe Cates also was an anchor of the Drop Dead Fred franchise, if you remember. Also, I mean, there wasn't much to talk about within that, other than her.
Please tell me we're not gonna feature that on the show.
That'll be in episode 363. We've run out of things to talk about. Let's talk about Drop Dead Fred.
Now, this is interesting because I think Penn moves on to Taps after this, which, like you just said, completely different spectrum change, right? Yes. I just thought that this was a perfect precursor to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, because Keanu Reeves must have sat there and went, dude, he's my muse. I'm going to listen to him and, basically replicate his speech.
Yeah, they totally ripped off Spicoli for that movie. I mean, let's just, call it what it was. But I mean, again, not knocking Bill and Ted, but I mean, yeah, he definitely borrowed a couple things from Mr. Penn's performance, I would have to say.
All right, so Penn was 21, Jason Leigh was 20, Reinhold 25, Kate's 19. She actually did nude stuff prior to this, so this wasn't that big of a leap. But I did hear that scene, she wanted everybody out of the set. So I think it was a very private set that was done. And then going down the list, blah 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 blah. But so let's get to your boy Mike. What, Damone? Is that, I'm saying it right? Damone?
Yep, Mike Damone. So the gentleman on the left of that picture. So I mean, it just the reason that he bothers me, it's like everybody's had a friend like this in high school. It's like, sort of like if you're a little socially awkward, you've got this maybe older friend that maybe is trying to give you some guidance as far as how to, pick up chicks or whatever. And that's ultimately what Mark Ratner, came to Mike, again, sort of a mentor to him. I mean, for whatever weird reason that was. But, Mike Damone basically kind of inched his way in, and Stacy was 15 years old at the time. 15, good grief, 10th grade.
A 20-year-old playing a 15-year-old. Yeah, no, I know.
But just the fact that he just kind of snaked his way in, he knew Ratner was after Stacy, and just the fact that, well, and also remember, Stacy got, if you watch the right TV edit, she got banged in a dugout earlier on in the movie, and that was a little sketchy. That was Ron Johnson from the Stereo Shop.
Yeah. How is that place called The Point? I don't know.
So, talking about The Point, it really begs a good question of, every person or every high school, I imagine there's probably like a good makeout spot where they go. And I was trying to think. So we're both Chesapeake High School graduates. So we grew up in Pasadena, Maryland. And I was trying to think, was there a spot like that in Pasadena?
Don't ask me.
So I think that those kind of spots, if because Pasadena is a peninsula, so basically we have one main road, Mountain Road, and then all the split off roads basically end up in front of the water. So there's always like these little quiet coves and little parking spots and stuff like that. So I think that's the Pasadena equivalent of it, or maybe, any suburban water-ish kind of town. I imagine that's probably it. Because you figure if it goes poorly, you can always, throw them on a dinghy and push them out to sea. But, that's another conversation for another day.
I would have maybe said it was a parking lot next to a fast food restaurant, because I do remember a lot of people gathering in the parking lot. All right, so I've been tossing a couple of facts in there, and one of the things that I was writing down when I went back and watched it, it mentions being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant, because even today when you watch it, it hits on so many marks of growing up. The food jobs that you had when you first, when you first got into the ability to have a job, and those were the entry level. But what's funny about it is Brad, he gets fired from two of those and ended up being a manager of one at the very end, which we'll get to. But the pizza, the 7-Eleven, the flipping burgers, and I think there's always somebody when they did the casting. There is a Brad from your school. There is a Stacy. There is a Mike. All those things, and they absolutely latched on to the mall scene, which was huge for so many years in the 80s. And there was actually Sherman Oaks Galleria. So these coming of age films were really, really interesting. But I want to ask you this though. Mike, and when he first started showing me, he wasn't even shown in school. I thought he was like maybe a graduate already, maybe just recently. But he didn't actually show up in school until after the pool scene. So I thought that was odd.
Well, he never showed up in a classroom. I mean, it was, at the lockers. But I mean, that's a fair. It's almost like the Matthew
even Spicoli did.
Right. Well, that's true. He was eating pizza on Mr. Hand's time. But it's like Matthew McConaughey and Dazed and Confused. He was sort of the 23, but still hanging out with all the high school people. And I guess with Damone's side job of a ticket scalper, I mean, maybe he just sort of lingered around. I mean, 1982 was not any secure time as far as getting into a high school. I mean, maybe he just didn't have a job, just sold tickets, sat by the bleachers, and bang 15-year-olds.
I trust me, I do remember somebody that fit the Mike profile. Hey, so you mentioned this earlier, which is the Phoebe Cates, and I mean, let's not forget we saw Jennifer Jason Leigh as well, naked.
Female.
Yeah. So this actually was X-rated. It was on the cusp of being X-rated. They pulled it back enough to where it didn't toe the line anymore. But I wrote down it was made with $27 million. It's made 6 times that. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. It was at 4.5 million budget, and it's made 6 times that for $27 million, which, for Amy Heckling, which I put into the ticker, the banner there. She went on to Look Who's Talking and Clueless fame, which people mention is a coming of age in another historically significant type of movie for the 90s, if you will.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about let's talk about the music, because I know the music was pretty cool. I threw some more facts in there, and I did not know that a lot of the really cool music, certainly the entry one, as soon as you start the movie, it's Go-Go's. It's not even on the soundtrack.
It's great. Well, but it sets the tone for the movie. I mean, it takes you right back to that time, having We Got the Beat as the intro, and right to the mall and everything. I mean, what a great intro by Cameron Crowe, that was the first script that he ever sold. Took a little while. I mean, there was quite a few studios that passed on that, but they let him kind of execute his vision, and I think he definitely got everybody into the mood of what the movie was in the first 2 minutes. He went undercover as a student in school to write a book about this. I thought that was really odd. What do they call them when we were in school? Narcs, right? Yeah.
You always spot the narcs. Like, who the hell is that? And they look a little old.
He's asking some odd questions, and yes, it's kind of like watching Beverly Hills 90210, where the cast was always in their 30s and they were still hanging out at the Peach Pit going to Beverly Hills High. They probably knew Spicoli.
Oh, absolutely. All right. This movie got voted one of the 50th best high school movies. I read that. I don't, and these I'm just going to bounce around because we're obviously tight for time, but I don't think I can hear Moving in Stereo by the Cars and not think of that scene. So
100%.
100%, you said. All right. And then Forrest Whitaker, don't forget about him. He was 21 in that movie, and he went on to some really phenomenal roles. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. If Jeff Spicoli was dumb, he was absolutely brilliant into manipulating him to destroy 42-0, destroy the other team.
Oh yeah. Yeah, when he wrecked the Trans Am because they took a wrong turn, and that is thankfully his dad had a totally awesome set of tools, so they were able to fix it.
Yeah, exactly. But what a beautiful car too.
Yes.
All right, check this out. So Tom Hanks was considered for Brad, and I think he was doing like Bosom Buddies or something. So he was actually a pretty decent option. Justine Bateman as Linda. I don't think that would have gone over. But she went into Beautiful Things with Family Ties, which I'm sure we're eventually going to feature on the show. Matthew Broderick as Spicoli.
Oh my god!
I mean, he was way better as Ferris, right?
Right.
And then Ali Sheedy and Ralph Macchio were turned down for the roles there. So both went on to Beautiful Things in the 80s. So, but yeah, kind of my wrap up, and I'll pass it on to you. You know, the whole growing up, the sex teen, you know, as a teenager, it's not it really isn't a comedy per se. You know, the hard hitting abortion topics and you know, just dating in general. I just thought those were crucial. Again, I would not watch this with my 13-year-old daughter, but it certainly touched on some emotional heartstrings, and they wove in the relationship between Stacy and Brad as brother and sister. I thought that was nice. But at the end, we didn't know this, and I thought you did. Well, maybe you didn't. Maybe you did. Maybe you didn't. But I never asked you this. That the tie-in with Ozzy is like at the end, Mike Damone gets caught for scalping Ozzy tickets.
That's right. That's right. The carve at the end, they do I'm sure everybody who's watching has probably seen it, but the quick little montage at the end of the movie where it sort of gives you, okay, what happened to the next? But yes, Damone got busted for selling Ozzy tickets, so he knew one day.
Right. Which is an 80s thing, right? I mean, how many movies go, you know what, we've gone too far, let's wrap it up with a little tiny you know, I guess updates or something.
Right.
Okay, more, because we're at 17 minutes on just Fast Times, but I did put in there, matter of fact, Mike Damone drove a Gremlin. I mean, how cool can you be driving a Gremlin?
Well, karma got him though, because, you know, again, snaking behind Ratner. I mean, and Ratner choked with Stacy. He was invited into the bedroom, basically had a hall access pass, and he stood down.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's sort of a self-defeating prophecy, I think, for Mr. Ratner. But for Mike though, I mean, again, he's a premature ejaculator. He proved that. So,
yeah.
But to provide some sort of lame excuse like he's out in the garage helping his father instead of paying the $75 and giving a ride to the clinic, I mean, that just kind of tells you who Mike Damone was, which was a little prick if you see the sign that was spray painted onto his Gremlin. So,
yes, and his locker. Yeah, right. The hands in each other's butt pocket. I thought that I saw that and I went, oh, I remember that happening. And then the collar is up. The Vans are back. They're cool now. I mean, cheating. That's an interesting. Again, they touched on how that was something they were all trying to cheat on Rat's paper. Sniffing the newly printed copies. I totally remember that.
The ditto paper.
You think it was the ditto paper?
Yep.
I know that I saw a video and it mentioned that, and I go, I don't remember that. Now, granted, I wasn't in the administrator's office to see exactly how they printed the damn things, but I totally remember grabbing it and going, that's a good.
Oh yeah, very fresh.
I'm surprised they haven't come out with a candle.
I would buy that.
Yeah, Pat Benatar. Pat Benatar she won out over Madonna, and I'm not sure why at that time, because I'm sure they were both pretty popular, but Pat Benatar was heavily promoted in that movie.
Well, so I would think again. I haven't been in a school since high school since 1989. But I would think,
Hope
do they
not.
dress like Taylor Swift these days, or I mean, who do they emulate now as far as how they dress and stuff? That's what I would wonder.
That's true. That's true. Bracelets everywhere. All right. So locker life, arcades, which, hello, I got an arcade right behind me. Yeah, there's beautiful mall life. You get a ticket at the movie theater, and he said, smoking upstairs to your left, smoking upstairs to your left, smoking upstairs to your left, smoking upstairs to your left. I'm like, well, here we go. It'd be interesting if we get people watching this from the school, but I took a puff of a cigarette in the 6th grade and never touched it since. And Don Goebbels was the guy that gave me the cigarette. So it'd be interesting if he tunes in eventually.
But you talked about vans, like the stoner vans of yesteryear, that culture has kind of changed. So now I kind of picture it being all the kids with the vapes, like in their, from where we're from, Pasadena is kind of like half and half. You got people that are super rich, kids are driving Audis to school, and then people like me driving the 84 Cavalier with the leaky sunroof,
You weren't driving a Gremlin, though.
Oh no, that's true. That's true. But I picture, what do they fall out of? When they're smoking up before school, what are they falling out of these days?
Well, we did say headbangers, jocks, nerds. We kind of covered as much as we could.
Maxes and dweebs as well.
Yeah. I never connected with that one. Within minutes of the show, minutes of the movie, the sex was brought up. Homo. Somebody who slapped a little piece of paper with a piece of tape on somebody's back saying homo. Yep. And then later they use the word fags. So we're just bringing that in context. I don't know if we're going to get banned for that, actually. First show, and we're already going to get banned because we're bringing it up as reference to Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So
we're going to blacklist it.
And then a poster came out that was connected saying Fast Times, Fast Carrots, and it had a little bit of the when Harry Met Sally, like, oof, I'll have what she's having type of moment. Yeah. I had like PTSD from Mr. Hand walking around going C, D, F. And I'm like, dude, you're saying it out loud, bro. You're killing me. Right. Shut up. I'm trying to impress the girl behind me.
Right. It's, what are you all on, dope?
Yeah, we were. And truants. I had to look up the word truants. I haven't heard that word since that movie.
Yeah, that's been a minute. And then we can't not talk about Fast Times without, again, Brad being walked in on while he was, flogging the proverbial log by Phoebe Cates, but,
Yeah, come on, though. Just lock the door, bro. I mean, I don't know.
That's a well, not to make a bad pun, but that's a dick move, leaving the door open. I mean, you're just kind of hoping maybe like 1%, maybe she's going to walk in and maybe she's going to be turned on by this. But probably not. Yeah. And she didn't seem turned on. She seemed a bit repulsed.
Yeah, they were both seniors. And it didn't seem like she was interested in him. But she also had an interesting backstory with she pretended that, I'm assuming she pretended she was linked up with older men, college. And then, of course, she wrote that letter. And
you mentioned it was X-rated. Maybe there was an X-rated cut where maybe she was turned on by that and just says, "All right, well, you're halfway there. Let's go ahead and take care of this." But then they cut it back for the R-rated version. But I could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, I know we're going to eventually talk about Die Hard in the show, but this was also a Christmas movie. They talk about Die Hard being is it a Christmas movie or not a Christmas movie? Well, guess what? Fast Times was also filmed during Christmas, not heavily, but I thought that was a funny little sidebar thing that I noticed. And Jaws was referenced in the movie, and I'm sure we're going to talk about Jaws at one point, which I just watched on a plane flying back from Europe. But I thought it was interesting. So Scantrons. Also, I want to talk to you about that. Remember, we were going to use that a little bit in one of our descriptions of the show. I'm sure it wasn't heavily a mark of growing up in the 80s, but they actually made a point that people drew bubble art on the Scantron. I thought that was hilarious. But that's how we do elections these days. We actually fill out a little tiny bubble and turn it in.
Pretty much. Well, that would always be the thing you're trying. I mean, trying to take a silhouette or whatever from, when they're cheating off a Ratner. It's like, all right, can I just see? It looks like it's a B, but maybe not. But yeah, it could go horribly wrong very quickly.
All right. Oh, and then finally, and then we're gonna move on. But there was. Come on, you. And this is actually, we should probably lead into Ozzy, but we're not. We're gonna leave that for later. The advice. Hey, you want to get it on with a girl? Led Zeppelin, side 4, blah 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 blah. And I thought that was hilarious because it's like dun 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 dun. They're trying to talk, and they're like, I don't really feel very sexy right now.
But okay, so you bring that up. So what he actually says is side 2 of Led Zeppelin 4. But the song that is played right after that is actually Kashmir, which is off of Physical Graffiti. But they weren't making out, so I mean, it's technically not a fact issue because that's what he advised. But that's always never clicked with me. It's like that's not what he recommended. But just stupid shit. I've seen the movie 150 times, so it's just something that bothers me.
And that's why you're a great co-host, because you're going to straighten us all out on the music side of the house, Charlie.
Just get it right. That's all I ask.
So the Fast Times was apparently popular enough that they moved on to was it a TV series just called Fast Times? Patrick Dempsey was in it. Terrible. And Dean Cameron. I looked them, but I know Patrick Dempsey. Most girls should know that. I mean, I mentioned that to my wife, and she'd be like, he was kind of hot in that Grey's Anatomy.
He was teeing himself up for Can't Buy Me Love.
Which I loved. That
was a good movie.
That was a good movie. Because that and Some Kind of Wonderful, hopefully we'll feature those two. But to me, it spoke to me as you weren't in the super cool category, and you really couldn't land the beautiful girl. And but these movies are like, well, maybe you could. Right. It's like, it's gonna give me hope. It's gonna give me hope.
Just throw a little money in there. That's all.
All right. You want to move on to our next subject?
Let's do it.
All right. So why did you pick Cheers?
A lot of reasons. Mainly, I look back on Cheers as, my mom worked in the same bar for 40 years as a bartender, Sunset Restaurant in Glen Burnie. And when I grew up, this was always a fun show to watch with my dad, and just kind of watching sort of the repartee of everybody, sort of the camaraderie of everybody in the bar. Everybody knew each other, and it's in the theme, where everybody knows your name.
That's right.
But later in life, though, when I moved to Vegas, the Buffalo Wild Wings, back in the old days, the side of town I live on, there wasn't a whole lot of people and a lot of businesses out here, so it was all the same Buffalo Wild Wings on the corner of Durango and Warm Springs. And that was sort of the gathering of the melting pot of all these different folks that I knew. And I got to know from all over the country who all moved to Vegas like I did. And it sort of became our own personal Cheers. So a couple years later, I actually wrote a screenplay that was inspired really by the experiences with all those people. But it always was with kind of Cheers in the back of my mind as far as, that's exactly what I saw growing up, which is kind of convoluted, but that is the reason that I picked them. All those nights when you've got no lights, the check is in. That's the second verse that nobody knows about.
Yeah, nobody. I don't even remember. I don't remember that part.
Right.
I don't remember that. I know. I don't remember that part at all.
They said the theme can only be 15 seconds, so this will be the verse that. It's sort of like the Friends theme. There's like a whole 2 more verses to that nobody's ever heard, but it's like, and nobody really would need to, for that matter. But yeah, Cheers, just a huge, fantastic show that went 11 seasons. Again, and kind of polarizing too. It's interesting. Some people you talk about Cheers and they're like, I didn't really care for it or whatever. And I don't know exactly. Maybe that was Ted Danson's character that was a little that turned off people because he was kind of a womanizer.
Well, yeah, that's part of the storyline, right? I mean, he was uh, dealing with alcoholism and sexual and alcohol addiction, right?
Yep.
And they brought it up. I threw in there that the Cheers won 28 Emmys with 117 nominations, and making it one of the greatest of all time. One of the things I asked you, when you look at just film in general and stage, the idea that you could pull an entire show, because I believe almost 90% of Cheers was at the bar.
Yep.
They may be poked over into the pool room or the back office, but it rarely left the bar. They did have something in an apartment and so on and so forth. But if you think about it, people come in and they have stories, and this is part of what's great about socializing at a bar or a pub and so on and so forth. But yeah, to me, Cheers was that moment where we all sat around. I believe it's called must see lineup, right? So Fame,
Must see TV. Yep.
Yeah, must see TV. Fame, Hill Street Blues, Family Ties, Cosby Show. That lineup alone dominated the night, Thursday night. And I just remember that's what we used to do. It's Thursday night. What are you going to do? I'm going to sit and watch TV shows with my parents.
That's appointment television. That's a generation ago, when you actually, traffic battling to get home so we can get home at 9 o'clock to watch Cheers, instead of, what's on Paramount Plus? So I'll just stream it, whenever the hell I get home. It's a little bit.
You have to, you had to be there. And yeah, it's more than likely you had the food ready on the table and you all sat around, and who knows what 20-inch TV, 30-inch TV. I don't know.
Yeah, if you had it good. Yeah, but
yeah.
Interesting thought though. You think back to when this show first launched in '82. So that was back when, like in Maryland, we had channel 2, 11, and 13, and then a couple, channel 45. But there wasn't a lot of choices. That was the thing with appointment television, is there wasn't as many, choices to find a good TV show like it is today, where there's 400 different things, and you probably wouldn't be watching the same thing that your parents are watching just because you have other options on different streamers and things like that. But back in those days, it's just, okay, which network am I going to watch?
Yeah, well, I believe at the time, right, cable TV was coming out, VHSs, and the idea that more people had more options. So the networks, mainly ABC, CBS, and NBC, were vying for that ultimate, throne of, hey, we're controlling it. And and at that point, when they started adding things like, well, the Cosby Show and we'll feature them, I'm sure, on a show, but they just solidified everything. That was one of the greatest TV shows. Actually, I'd be interested in seeing where it landed on the greatest TV shows of all time. But when Cheers came out, it was 74th of 77. I'm thinking in its first season, and just something clicked. I mean, maybe it was the time zone and not time zone, but time slot.
Time slot. Yep, absolutely.
But it went into the top 10 during 8 of its 11 seasons, and I think season 9 it was number 1. The Glenn and it was 2 brothers. So Glenn and Les Charles created
James
it.
Burrows.
James Burrows certainly came in as well. But Glenn and Les were MASH, Betty White, Mary Tyler Moore, Bob Newhart, Taxi, and Frasier. Pretty damn good. I remember most of those. And then Burrows brought in obviously, and went on to things like Friends, Will and Grace, Third Rock from the Sun, Good Times, Facts of Life, Different Strokes. I watched all those.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, really good. You just can't deny that's some talent right there.
I sat and watched the first two seasons when we decided to do this. I sat and watched the first two seasons, and it's
okay.
interesting how writing always, writing evolves. I mean, you look, even like the first couple Seinfeld episodes, where it was a little clunky, it didn't quite click, right out of the gate. And I think, writers, I think sometimes struggle to find the voices for the actors that go with it, and I think, sometimes you have to loosen the reins and kind of let an actor's talent kind of speak for itself. And I think the thing I learned watching the first two seasons was watching sort of the Shelley Long, Ted Danson chemistry kind of build, and the sexual tension that was going on and stuff like that. But I think the writers started getting a better feel for who they had within that cast, and I think that's why the time slot certainly helped. I mean, if you're right behind one of those popular shows in the history of television, you're probably going to do pretty well.
Yeah,
but I think
you're not going to. The idea you're going to get up and switch the remote control or turn it. You're going to be like, let's just stick that. Yeah,
exactly. What are we going to watch? 2020? It's like, yeah, let's go watch this.
Yeah, yeah, but one of the interesting. There's so many interesting side stories for each person. Coach, I know you want to mention him about this. Sonality, the bringing in Woody, which was a phenomenal addition, but I didn't know Norm and Cliff were pretty much in every episode. They might not have been in the credits, but they were in every episode. And just each one had an interesting. Each one brought something to the table when it comes to And I think this is what connected to mainstream public, right? So we have, there was pregnancy. Carla dealt with that. There was troubled marriage and divorce. There's always, everyone knew at least a Norm out there. But we never saw his wife, and he had some of the best. That must have been so fun to write just for Norm. The class divisions between Shelley Long and Ted Danson, and again, this mirrors kind of what Fast Times Ridgemont High was. Everybody went on to something bigger, and one of the people I wanted to point out is Cliff Clavin and John Ratzenberger. He apparently is the third grossing actor of all time. The money that he makes from his voices in Pixar, which is so funny. You're like, you just hear his voice for whatever. Obviously he was more prevalent in the early ones, and then later on you maybe hear him like a cameo or something, but the dude gets paid. So
he does. Well, so go back to the class division thing you were talking about. So I was watching an episode from season 7 yesterday. So that's when Rebecca had taken over. So that was Kirstie Alley, who Shelley. And it's interesting. You go back to season 5 when I remember hearing a lot about contract disputes. Because back in the old days, the way you got paid in TV was when your show got the syndication, meaning 100 episodes. Now it can be on anytime. So all the repeats show during the day or whatever. But that was kind of why Shelley Long left. I know she said, "Oh, I want to do movies," which she went on to do Money Pit right after Cheers, which was fantastic. But again, a movie for another show.
And Tom Hanks.
But Shelley Long always had the same thing. She kind of looked down on Sam intellectually because of her background. Rebecca was sort of she wanted to be high class, but she didn't really have she was like a lot of hat, not a lot of cowboy. She wanted to be that elite kind of person, and she treated Sam that way, but she just really didn't quite put it all together. And then, but it was interesting just that the evolution of that, always having sort of the strong female to sort of challenge his womanizing attitude that he had. It just kind of created sort of a interesting dynamic, but it wouldn't fly in network television today. They would be like, "Oh no, this is this isn't anything we want to associate as far as how his beliefs, his shenanigans."
Yeah. He actually had to attend bartending school to look like he knew what the hell he was doing. And he also apparently never even attended a baseball game, yet he was a Boston Red Sox relief pitcher, I believe.
He was Mayday Malone. He was a
Mayday.
late inning reliever, Mayday Malone.
Yeah, and they did bring on, once you get successful, I guess you can name any TV show that's been around a while. They start bringing on different celebrities, TV personalities, political people, and of course, they did that with Cheers. Then they did talk about the education, the age. They brought up gay topics, homosexuality, and the motion. This is something that I want, just because you brought up saying that you watched the first 2 seasons, to go back and look at the style of the shooting. They mentioned that it was, I guess, I don't know, groundbreaking, if you will. There was a motion style direction of, if you watch the show, you'll see somebody talking with someone else, but around them, either the people are paying attention to the conversation and maybe cleaning a cup or something, or putting a cup, a mug or a pint glass up. They're doing something movement wise and pretending they're listening. And in the background, there's people that are interacting at the bar stools or on the chairs. So that type of movement where, hey, even if you're not on screen, you could be. So do something, move around. I thought that was really interesting. And then I think, matter of fact, on the ticker and in the banner, I thought another thing was they had these cliffhangers. Eventually they got into cliffhangers, or they called them multi-episode arcs. And they actually, Gary and Les and Burroughs actually apologized, like, I'm sorry, we might have started that trend, and you can go into things like, I don't know, I got to find out when Dallas started, but there's a lot of TV shows that you would watch a show, and at the end they go, almost like a dun dun dun, and then and then you see the credits, and you're like, son of a bitch, oh man, we got to tune in next week to see this. They would pull you in and make sure that you were there next week as a guaranteed audience member. So
to keep those ratings. I did notice that style of shooting last night, though. Watching that season 7 episode, Sam said something to somebody at the bar, and you saw the person off screen kind of like shaking his head no, like he's responding to it. So just completely organic. But yes, I did notice that as a part of that. So that's kind of interesting.
All right. So unless you have something else, just Coach in general, sad. I know that they had to write him off a certain way just because he passed away. And interesting, he didn't have much of a background. He was a World War II vet. I thought that was interesting. But in the Boston era, or excuse me, area, having the like an Italian heritage, and was a key thing. Obviously, an Irish heritage as well. But to have the Tortellis and the Pantusos and those type of names, they obviously did their research, and that
oh yeah,
that was good. They didn't. It was 82, right? So no social media. You put a show like that out today with that lineup, no ethnic diversity, unless you get into your heritage and things like that. But that's what you just didn't have, and you didn't have to worry about that. But again, one of the greatest of all times.
Yeah,
right.
That's for sure.
44 minutes, bro. You want to move on to some heavy rockers?
We can make it happen. R.I.P. to Mr. Ozzy Osbourne, who, as of the night of this taping, passed away about 3 weeks ago. And as many of you know, he was the lead singer of Black Sabbath. Really the leader and the creator of the heavy metal movement starting back in 1970. And then he made many great albums with them. Really, again, blazed the trail really for heavy metal at that point. And then he left the band, and then went on obviously to a very successful solo career. Started off, Blizzard of Oz, Bark at the Moon, and that was when he was a little more coherent. And then later, later in the '80s, the albums like Ultimate Sin. The first time I saw Ozzy live was at Merriweather Post Pavilion in Columbia, Maryland. Metallica actually opened up for Ozzy. Metallica was on their Master of Puppets tour, which was right before they stopped being an opener and became a headliner after that. But I recall Ozzy, there was a thunderstorm at Merriweather that night, and 3 songs into the set had a lightning strike, and they didn't have electricity for 20 minutes. So they were out there trying to keep the people entertained. I think the drummer was twirling his sticks and shit like that, but they got everything finally back on the rails. But, Ozzy's had a lot of great bands behind him. Randy Rhoads, was a guitar player who tragically died in a plane crash soon after the solo career started, but he was, certainly a groundbreaking guitarist. Jakey Lee came in with him next. He had Zakk Wylde, which once we got into the Ultimate Sin days, Zakk Wylde was just an amazing player. I think he was like 19 or 20 when he joined Ozzy's band, and just really gave him a shot in the arm that he really needed at the time. And then his music over time, again, just to speak, not disrespectfully, but I mean, the albums were decent. I've seen Ozzy live probably a dozen times, and I can tell you that probably 80% of the time I would watch him read lyrics off the stage. So I mean, again, he had 55 years of partying. Eventually you're gonna forget some things, but it was always kind of interesting. That was my first introduction to karaoke live about in the '80s. So I just take the lyrics on the stage.
But come on, you got to admit he was more a performer than entertainer performer than an actual just, hey, we're gonna get up there and we're gonna rock, and I'm gonna be doing some awesome stuff. But great voice. He was. Rolling Stone said he's 112 out of 200 greatest singers. They give him. I mean, he didn't break the 100 mark, but
right.
Like you said, slightly incoherent. It's odd that when especially during the Osbournes, the show, you could barely understand him, but when he sings, you can understand him better.
Yeah, I think that's.
So I did not listen to Black Sabbath. I did not listen to Ozzy, and this is where Charlie just cringes. But I started listening to him in the No More Tears arena, and that was when he, MTV had a lot of airplay with his videos. Certainly, Sharon. We'll get into Sharon, how she pretty much raised him up to crazy status of marketing and making lots of money and being more mainstream than anything. But this is so MTV has Black Sabbath as one of the greatest metal bands of all time. VH1 had, I think, second greatest metal bands. Rolling Stone mentioned him as an artist, 85th. There's a ridiculous amount of accolades. He's got 6 kids, 2 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, 2 Walks of Stars. It's one of the greatest heavy metal albums on the Black Sabbath side, but he moves on, and the idea that he just kept moving. I was stunned just looking him up on the internet and going, oh my gosh, how much information do I have to scroll through to grasp what he's done? And like you said, Zakk Wylde, and as he picked up certain band members, both previous and from other places, people obviously gravitated towards him, and he just kept on producing. And again, I don't know if it was Sharon or if it was the collaboration between him and the other bandmates, writing lyrics. I mean, he wasn't a master at writing lyrics, but I was also shocked, especially nowadays when you listen to stuff, no foul language.
Not really, not that I can think of. Yeah, Sharon really was, I think, the grounding force that made him the entity that he was. He probably wouldn't have been alive in the 2000s had it not been for her kind of getting himself straightened out. But I think really where he was able to win like a new generation of fans was with the Osbournes. I mean, people of that generation. Again, he's probably just some old fuddy duddy to them, but once they, oh my God, they're such a colorful group of people and yada yada yada. But yeah, I think but I believe that his credibility that he established early in his career with Black Sabbath kind of set him up to be able to surround himself with good enough musicians.
Talent. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's just it. I just, again, thinking back, I used to read liner notes on albums like a crazy person just to see who wrote what and lyrics and stuff like that. And I don't remember a whole lot of songs that Ozzy wrote, even like in the 80s. And, so if you got people writing you good songs, you have a voice that's recognizable, which of course his is like, again, if there was a heavy metal theme song, Ozzy probably would be singing it. So, but he just
very recognizable.
Absolutely, 100%.
So Ozfest was created by Sharon, and it launched multiple different careers of other bands. I mean, there was at one point in time, the biting the head off the dove to impress the record execs, and then latching onto that, and obviously all the key albums that you mentioned, Blizzard of Oz and so on and so forth, there's a gimmicky kind of, hey, we're gonna latch onto this whole Prince of Darkness thing and go with it. The multimedia, the generational, the mainstream, $50 in merchandise. They even have and again, he moved on and said, you know what, I'm going to bite the head off of a bat, which he thought it was a fake bat. And anyway, somebody said this, somebody said that. He said, you know what, we're going to try to clarify the story, but it accentuated it beyond lore. But to the point where somebody, maybe Sharon, hey, let's have a plush doll bat that you can tear the head off. So it's brilliant in a way. And he like I said, he surrounded himself with attached Gary Moore, Rat, Motorhead, Alice in Chains, Post Malone before he passed away, Lita Ford, obviously, which is one of the songs that I remember and enjoyed, Faith No More, Metallica, Journey, Steve Vai, all these people, wove in and out of Ozzy's life. And he obviously pissed a lot of people off, and but he was able to do enough to where he made fun of himself enough. The controversial lyrics, peeing on the Alamo, that that he got banned, and then he pulls one of these things where he actually and I have it, one of the tickers thing. He loved right there. I'll put this one in there. His favorite movie is Life of Brian from Monty Python. I mean, he's from Warwickshire near Birmingham, which is funny because I just traveled to Europe. I just went through England. I didn't know. I didn't have all this research in my head as we were driving literally past where we could have pulled over and seen the Black Sabbath bridge, and obviously they're huge. It's an icon for them in Birmingham to be able to say, hey, he's from here. And he died in the Jordans. So yeah. And I didn't know this, but in that same area, William Penn was from there. But I went back. So to give you a nod, I went back and listened to Paranoid and Iron Man and Psycho Man and Children of the Grave and Sweet Leaf and Hole in the Sky and Over the Mountain Flying. I listened to all these and I'm like, hey, this is pretty damn good. I'm actually going to download this and put it in my playlist. There's some stuff that you have to admit, the grittiness of the guitars, just the dramatic kind of like drops, and of course his voice. It's pretty good, and what an amazing career, and what an interesting dude.
Tony Iommi was his guitar player with Black Sabbath, and he actually he was a guitar player who was actually missing the tips of two of his fingers.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
he had to sort of adapt his own style as far as how he played guitar, but again, just trailblazing kind of stuff. And I think a lot of folks that don't know specific Black Sabbath songs maybe know the guitar riffs, like Children of the Grave, the different jams within the songs. You're like, oh shit, I've been hearing that for 40 years, or oh, that was somebody's opening wrestling music or something like that. They always pick out the riffs that Tony Iommi created with Black Sabbath. So I mean, again, that band was just perfect storm as far as their time in music history. And one other thing I wanted to mention, I know we're coming up on our time. Motley Crue opened up for Ozzy back in '82, and Nikki Sixx mentioned in The Dirt that they were out at the pool at the hotel they were staying at, and there was an anthill, and Ozzy went down and snorted a whole line of ants. So
Okay.
I've always been a little fascinated with that. Like, well, I mean, the ants got to go somewhere. I mean, it's not like they're just going to die. So are they just like kind of crawled around your insides there? Or,
if he came up with a song because of that, then more power to him.
Well, there was Alien Ant Farm that came out later on, but I don't think that's what they were named after. I could be wrong, though.
No, and for the listeners and viewers, the idea that we will eventually figure out a way to feature, the music from the 80s, we're working on it. But yeah, I did find myself walking around after listening to going "Flying High Again," and then which is, by the way, his favorite song. The idea that the guy went into he was on stage 17 days before he died.
He saved up for that. I tell you, I mean, that was for what Paul's talking about is Black Sabbath did like one final show, but pretty much all of the metal artists that they influenced over 40 or 50 years sort of put a huge like pay-per-view program. And actually it is, I think you can probably find it on YouTube if you go look for it hard enough. But it was an entire day of rock where they put all these different little super groups together doing their tributes to Black Sabbath and Ozzy. And then Black Sabbath did their last thing. And I mean, you could tell he didn't look good. I mean, he sounded as good as he could, but you could tell he was kind of struggling. And honestly, when I got the news that he passed, I'm like, well, hell, I mean, if you're going to go out, that's the way to do it in front of all those people. Yeah. And, and they'll do some kind of DVD set if that's even a thing anymore. But they said they're going to do some kind of backstage kind of thing.
Well, one of the things that gave me a bit of pause, there's a connection with Ozzy and my dad. He had Parkinson's disease, and he actually had it for over a decade. My dad struggled with it for at least 25 years. I'm having a Yingling lager in honor of my father, because it's from Pottsville, Pennsylvania, which is where he was born.
Cheers.
That's where the breweries, yeah. And so yeah, it was one of those. And I know they don't say it, but I mean, he's another advocate for that disease. And just like you said, he was 76.
I think that 76. Was it.
But the idea, the guy was 76 after all the stuff that he did, including Parkinson's, which is something that you don't smoke and do drugs and get that. It's just one of the things that you roll the dice, and that's what you're given. But oops. So one of the things I wanted to bring up on the ticker was so he was part of the Polka Tulk Blues.
I noticed that.
Yeah, it's just a kind of a heavy blues thing. I thought that was really odd. But then I looked at what Polka Tulk was, and they mentioned like maybe a talcum powder from Birmingham and things like that. But what an interesting leap from that to, although when you listen to some of the early Black Sabbath, there's a very bluesy, heavy bluesy kind of riff. Yeah.
If you weren't going to say it, I was. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it was all experimental then. I mean,
Oh.
you know, they're trying to tie those sounds together. And yeah, those first 4 Black Sabbath albums are insane.
And barely on the radio.
Yeah.
But they grew massively. They got tons of followers and people went crazy, but barely on the radio, which I don't know if that equates to today. You want to be heard, you want to be downloaded, you get a following that way. Obviously, you know, there was that MTV in VH1, and by the way, Friday night videos, which is what I'm going to say what poor people had, because we didn't have cable, we had Friday night videos.
Me too.
But the spike that did for bands, and I think we've shared it on one of our platforms, but Charlie sent it to me. I think it was the first 50 videos on MTV. And I think we're going to also talk about MTV in general on one of the future shows. Man.
One thing to mention before we close out, though, because I know there's a lot of cord cutters out there, meaning the people that don't have cable, they have different streamers. Like I have YouTube TV, which recently added MTV Classic. What that means is they show videos 24 hours a day. So on the weekends, they have metal videos a couple hours. They have 120 Minutes, which was an alternative show from the early 90s that used to be on Sunday nights. But you can just, if you have YouTube TV, go find MTV Classic. We always run it on our second TV. It's literally running on a loop almost the entire day, just so I can find some of those gems from yesteryear. But I found Black Flag. It was TV night, or so it was an old crappy video, like from back Henry Rollins early days. But just these little gems just pop up from now and then. But if you have YouTube TV, check out MTV Classic. What do you think I was working for him?
Yeah, no. Wait till we get sponsored, Charlie.
Yeah,
we get some sort of I know. Well, we had I tell you, so thank everyone for sticking through this hour. That's our intent, is to try to pull off an hour show, and obviously we're gonna toe the line, our left and right limits, just because of the content and what we're trying to push out. And we're also aging. 50 plus year olds guys are trying to figure out the technology of the day, the bells and whistles, all this stuff. And we will improve. We will add a little more extra stuff, a montage, music, segues, so on and so forth. And eventually we will go live and we will include guests. We want to make sure that we get the right amount of followers, because again, we're under the umbrella of the corporation, Facebook and YouTube and Meta, and so we're trying to deal with all that to try to meet the numbers. But our intent is to do remote, logging in from breweries and odd, cool places. Send us what you can for show suggestions. Trust me, we have tons of ideas, but we're not going to hit everything perfectly. We're not going to touch on a lot of stuff. Remember, our memories are also fading. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there as a wonderful disclaimer.
Yep, absolutely. And just real quick, Streamyard is the platform that we're using for the cast. And if you have, I know at the very least an iPhone, you can download the app. And then if you want to be a guest on the show, we can actually kick you a link out. And that makes it easy for you to interface with the show, where you actually can be, a part of the show, not just, typing in the comments. So just kind of throwing it out there for future reference. We're probably not going to do the guests probably for the first few shows, but as we sort of evolve the show and the platform, certainly keep an eye out for that. And I think it's probably out there for Android as well. But again, just an easy way if you want to be a part of the shows moving forward, then keep it in mind.
Yep. So one of the things that I have been doing behind the scenes is trying to look up our closing remarks. So if you're done, Charlie, I will close us out and we'll call this the end of the show. Yeah.
Tie it off.
Okay. All right. Well, our time is up, friends. Our podcast moves pretty fast. And if you don't stop and subscribe, once in a while, you could miss it. But don't worry, be happy. We'll be back like Jason Voorhees. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
Oh.